And this is a special episode of the Nonprofits. I'm Matt Dillahunty. I'm the only one of the regular nonprofits who's actually here today, but that doesn't matter because we have guests in from out of town. And all of you will probably know all of them because AronRa, who's been with us before, and who I would like to say is going to be the guest lecturer for the ACA on April 3rd and on the Atheist Experience show on April 3rd, is here, along with Mrs. Ra. And Ashley Paramore from the Secular Student Alliance is here, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, including the school teachers' protest that went on yesterday at the Capitol here in Texas. Yeah, I don't want to keep her here all day, but we got to get on to what happened yesterday. So rather than me talk, why don't you guys tell us what happened yesterday, why, and everything everybody needs to know.
Okay, the new Texas budget is they're working on this in the Texas legislature, and the Texas is required to have a balanced budget. They're not allowed to have a deficit, and in order to do this, they're proposing cuts only to all state services, including colleges, public education, and the deficit is $25 billion, and they're passing this right to the public schools and other agencies like the prison systems, just passing it right to the state agencies. And Rick Perry recently this week said, well, it's not his fault if teachers get laid off because he doesn't hire and fire the teachers. And in the case of public education, I'm a public school teacher. The first draft of the budget is proposing to cut $10 billion from public education. $10 billion is a great deal of money, and what that translates into real people is that I work for Dallas ISD. Dallas ISD in their first draft of their budget, if they get the worst case scenario, is losing 3,900 jobs, and in the second case, 1,800 jobs. Or in my campus alone, that would amount to 1 in every 4 teachers getting laid off. They'll get laid off at the end of the year while they're still teaching. And I went through this 2 years ago because Dallas ISD itself had a problem balancing its budget, and teachers left that same day. Students were crying, teachers were crying, and this is going to happen all over the state. And at the same time that they're proposing these cuts to public education, there are also bills in the House that want the state to pay for textbooks to private schools. And I don't mean to single out Republicans, but mainly what they try to push are vouchers.
Yeah.
And they're not really friendly to the public school system. And everybody dogs the public school system, but the public school system is made of the public. We have to teach all of the children. You can't just cream all the greatest, most motivated students into private schools and charter schools, and then say, look how piss poor the public school system is.
Yeah.
We don't pick and choose our students. We try to educate everybody.
So yesterday's rally, the initial reports were a little sketchy, but I just checked the local CBS station. And they're reporting that an even bigger crowd than expected showed up at the rally. More than 11,000 people marched their way to the steps of the state capitol. I'm really glad that there was a huge presence there because, like
when we arrived, there were, I don't know how many school buses were already there at the park. I mean, regular school buses.
Yeah.
They were pulling away as we pulled up. They had brought in students. I don't know how many buses were there. Following then, 19 charter buses pulled in from everywhere in the state.
Mm-hmm.
And we had teachers, and we had higher faculty members, and we had superintendents. One who made the comment that as he was speaking to address these 11,000 people, he said that this had been predicted back in 2006. They made these budget cuts. They knew to some degree what was coming. They estimated in 2006 that the deficit would be $23 billion. It's 25 or 27, but it was pretty close. and they didn't do anything about it, and now we're reaping the rewards.
Yeah. We've had countless battles in Texas with the State Board of Education on school books, on curriculum, and that's ongoing. And we've had rallies where we've had hundreds, perhaps a couple thousand people show up, but never with the numbers that showed up yesterday. This is not even just a Texas issue. You already mentioned some of the national cuts, but if we cut the budget by $10 billion and put teachers out of work, then we decrease the quality of education that students can get. That also means that we are probably going to see less motivation to correct errors in textbooks, to kind of rein in the State Board of Education. This thing does potentially trickle down. You cut the education system in Texas, and all of a sudden the thing that doesn't look like it affects everybody begins to affect everybody. Not to mention the fact that we are screwing kids over on the type and quality of education that they're going to get.
Well, the worst case scenario is that 100,000 teachers will get laid off. So if the problem they're blaming this on is the economy, you can't put that many teachers into the economy without there being jobless, without there being effects to people who serve the education industry as well. It's I don't mean to say, but it's asinine.
Yeah.
And I sat in a meeting with people who were talking from the community to our Dallas ISD board trustees. Students were up there. They were like, "This is insane. Every one of you sitting here on this board was taught by a public school teacher. I mean, how can you take my teachers?" Everybody was pleading with them, cut anywhere else, but don't take our teachers.
I think my favorite sign from the rally was, "You can't balance a budget, or try balancing a budget without math teachers." You're in a classroom, right? How many students do you have in your classroom right now?
I have 6 periods that I teach, and the highest number I have is 30 in the classroom. And what they're proposing is in middle school to have 35 students to 1 teacher. They're saying that now it's 24 to 1, but I work in an inner city school and I have 30 students.
So you got 6 periods that you teach. Probably an average of 25 or so per class?
Yes.
So you're looking at 150 students that you have to deal with every day.
Yes.
Do you have any free time? I know.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't. If I'm not tutoring after school, I mean, there's lots of talk about how teachers are greedy or whatever, and I work for free to do my job after school.
Yeah.
Because it isn't necessarily about the money, it's about the students. It's about trying to educate and make the world a better place.
Yeah, and so you do something that not only I couldn't do, but when I think about if there were 150 people that I was responsible for on a daily basis, and that I actually cared about and wanted to spend the appropriate time with each of the needs. I mean, some students, need more than others, and some don't need too much at all. And I would find that a daunting task. And for them to come in and say, now we're going to increase it so that you're looking more like at 175 or maybe more. To me, this isn't when we talk about morale among teachers, this isn't just because they're getting budget cuts and maybe they're not going to get any raises, or maybe they're going to get laid off or anything else. It's the task itself is overwhelming. How is this not crippling education to put teachers in a state of feeling constantly overwhelmed and potentially depressed by this daunting task that most people cannot do? It's not like you can pick anybody off the street to go in and teach kids, even if they know the material.
It's like teachers are the infantry. We're the ground troops, and they're rolling out new testing that we have to push the students to to do well on harder tests. It's like what you're saying. It's like you're a donkey and they put more and more of a load on your back, and then they whip you and whip you and whip you. Why can't you get these test scores? Why is Texas the #1 state for high school dropouts? Yep. And it's not. There's the teacher's responsibility, but we can't do it all by ourselves. I mean, but the blame usually stops with us, and we're the first ones that get fired when we're doing our job. It's not our job to draft the budget. It's their job, and they're not doing their job to support us.
Yeah.
And also, it could only make the public school system worse, which will increase the pressure for the state money to go to private schools, to charter schools, voucher systems, and everybody who is from a background where they can afford to do that will, and it will only make the public school system itself worse.
Yeah. So, while I mentioned that this is kind of a sideways topic, I'd like to think that, the nonprofit listeners, particularly those in Texas, would, if you weren't aware of what was going on, if you weren't aware of this huge rally downtown, that those of you in Texas in particular would take a minute to contact your elected officials, your representatives, and tell them, yes, you absolutely want a balanced budget. You know that a balanced budget is required, but that we cannot cripple the next generation in order to make that happen.
The state of Texas has a $9 billion rainy day fund that Perry is refusing to touch. He even had a meeting with all of the Republicans in the legislature, and he told them to hold the line. You got elected to not raise taxes, and I'm not for a state income tax because I believe spending would increase to whatever the income tax was, and it would be regressive. But there's other ways to fix this problem. The funding needs to be fixed because, like he said, in 2006 they lowered property taxes, and they changed the way schools are funded to a business tax that's not paying out with enough revenue. It's their job to figure this thing out, not my job. Yeah. And if you look at the Texas Constitution, it says that it's the state's obligation to support and maintain the system of public free schools. And a general diffusion of knowledge being essential to the preservation of the liberties and rights of the people, it shall be the duty of the legislature of the state to establish and make suitable provision for the support and maintenance of an efficient system of public free schools. I mean, a lot of times you see the metaphor, if it's like a family. If you don't have enough money, you have to cut back. But there's some things I would not cut back on for my kids.
Yeah.
I would get another job. I would find a way to get it done.
You cut off the extended cable package. You cut off the unlimited data plan for your cell phone. You cut off any number of things, but you don't turn off the lights or the water.
Right.
And I got news for Governor Perry. It looks like it's raining, and it's time perhaps to dig into a rainy day fund. I don't know what the disconnect is. We talked about cognitive dissonance before with regard to religion and things. I don't see how somebody can be in a position of leadership, knowing these responsibilities, and think that a $10 billion budget cut for public education is remotely a feasible idea.
Well, what he does is he offers no real solutions. He just sticks to his talking points. I don't see any actionable plan to help the public school system. He'll say, well, I'm not going to raise taxes. The state of Texas doesn't want me to raise taxes, and it's misleading.
Yeah.
So it's like she said, he doesn't offer any sort of a plan at all. There were a lot of speakers at yesterday's convention that some of them made some moving comments on that, and there were a lot of placards. One of them, my favorite, said that if you think education is expensive, ignorance costs more.
Yeah.
To kind of paraphrase what Barack Obama said, he said about education cuts, it's like if you were trying to cut expenses on an airplane and you cut the fuel. I mean, that it would make it less expensive, but you would quickly feel the impact.